Alrighty, traders, what is going on? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Again, as always, it is October 2nd, so September is over. September monthly recap coming at you guys. And just what a flipping market, guys. Almost speechless. And kind of the backstory here, again, if you watched maybe the end of July's recap or the end of August's recap, any given year that I've done these recaps, like I've always gone into these fall months saying, hey, let's go in with our foot on the brake, maybe with our foot off the gas, just in case things get rocky or slow or uneventful. Only because, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but again, when I showed maybe last recap, all of my previous months, there was never both months were good. There was always one month, whether it was August or was September, where things, were so tough to scratch by that like I should have just taken the month off, theoretically, in hindsight, right? So August was great. August was insanely good. So I'm immediately now going into September thinking like this is going to be the rough month that I am going to just scrape, on my hands and knees with my nails on the floor just to make, a livable wage, right? As an exaggeration. Boy, was that the exact opposite of what we got. And something that I kind of realized as we were going into the month was that, when everyone thinks one thing, like if everyone who participates in the market thinks on one side, typically the opposite happens. Now, I am always cautionary going into August and September, but I quickly realized in the middle of September that everyone was cautious going into September. So it was one of those things where, because everyone was thinking something was going to happen, the exact opposite ended up happening. And what that was is that it wasn't going to be slow, and it actually was insanely bullish and a lot of opportunity. And so, long story short, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, that is what led to the second best month of my career of $461,000. Again, for those who don't know the actual top, and then what was the second best month, but now is the third. Top is still going to be November of last year, with 838, thanks to MSTR. And then the second best for a long time, or was the first best till November, was February of 2021 with 439, or 440 pretty much. You want to round up by a couple $100. So, making where are we? Lose my place here. Making 460, puts February 2021 in third place, and now this is second. Again, wouldn't have expected it from a, typical August or September. But again, this was not your typical August or September, as we'll see and look at some of these charts. Quite the momentum. And so, a ton of swing trades. Again, kind of the polar opposite of August. If you watch the August recap, I basically showed how I made a bunch of money on August 1st from swings, and then spent the entire month giving all of it back to where I was actually almost perfectly break even on swing trades. Not the case in September. I think almost 60 to 70%, maybe even perfectly 75% of my profits this month was from swings. So even with no swing trading, I think I still would have made $100,000 plus. So still a great month for day trades. But you combine the two with just an incredible swing market, and we're having some insanely good months. So without further ado, let's jump in. Again, it's going to be probably 50-50, actually maybe 60-40. There's going to be more swing trades we're going to go over just because there were so many really good winners and not as many frequency of day trades. That was one thing that I'll say before I get into the trades, that in general in September, I did take less trades. I know it's hard to see by, I don't mention how many actually trades I take on the day. You just see the NP&L of that day. So it looks just as full as August or previous months. But the actual number of trades, I think I took 10 to 20 less trades than I normally do. So it became very efficient. Win rate was high, risk reward was really good. And there weren't many big losers. Again, the biggest loser was only negative 20K, which if that's going to be the case for most of my months, and I can pull in, a very healthy and multiple 5-figure gains or even some 6-figure gains, that's a recipe for a really good month over and over and over again. So anyways, let's jump right in. First one to start the month on the 2nd did actually take some losers on the swings, mainly because before we actually go into it, one of them was Nubis, but QQQ, I'm kind of referring to the QQ or to the NASDAQ when I'm talking about the market being hot for September, because when you go into it, the lows of day or the lows of the entire month, TradingView is getting really laggy on me here. Come on. No, wrong way. There we go. The low of September was the first trading day. So it had a huge gap down and we put in a low. And then since that low got put in, I mean, it was every single day we were green for like the first 2 weeks. I mean, there was no sign of weakness anywhere until middle, little shakeout here, came back, and then we still kept going. And so it looks great, but the first day shook me out on a couple of things because of that ugly gap down. So the first one was Nubis. Nubis, I had missed I've taken so many losses on this thing. I just can't seem to get it right. Took a ton of losses here, which we've talked about in previous videos. Tried getting long off of this little flag kind of wedge break, right? Like right here. So when it broke over, I think this day on August 25th, I got long. It worked for a few days. Because it never really got going truly and I had a smaller size, I never trimmed. I was kind of like, I don't want to trim till this breaks highs in my head, right? Unfortunately, started the first day of December, it gaps down much bigger than I expected. I ended up taking like 2x the loss of slippage, but thankfully I was small, so it really was only like a 1 hour loss. I lost about like 12K or so, 10K or so. So again, not that bad, just annoying because one, I didn't trim, trying to be greedy, which has actually happened a couple times this month. We'll talk about it in later trades, but yeah, just an unfortunate market gap down, caused some weakness. But lo and behold, we gapped up on, I forget what the news was, something about investment from, maybe it was Microsoft, only for it to base and then run, and now we are, a whole another 30% higher from there. And I say I can never nail this one because if you were in Clover, you heard me talking about, I think on the webinar, it was on September 17th, where I just didn't want to chase it it was this day, or one of these days. I just didn't want to chase it up at like 95 because if I was going to risk like 90 down below here. But man, like these 3 days was really the last time you had the chance to buy it before, it's now $30 a share higher. So fortunately missed the time it works, stops out multiple times. It doesn't, but it is what it is. It happens. But that was just one of them. The other one was MP. MP was another one, same idea that, again, I did make money on it in August. I kind of rode this wave up. I forget one of these days I bought it kind of premature. It didn't really actually have much consolidation, but I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I thought the trend was going to continue. And then of course gap down. So got caught on that gap down as well going into September. So took 2 losers there with about 10 to 12K each. Probably had a small win somewhere else, but again, finished the day, negative 19 grand. And I think I have the charts of at least Nubis. Yeah. This is me buying Nubis again on that kind of that trend break that we had. And then this is me getting stopped out on that gap down. And yeah, it spiked. But again, I'm not here to play games of trying to save a few dollars a share. Like it was all around bad on that gap down day. It was looking scary. Now, obviously things recovered, but again, in the moment, that's kind of what I did to the best of my ability. But anyway, next swing trade, it ended up being a really sweet winner. Wolf. So not WOLF, WULF. And I say that to be specific because we will go over both in this recap. I was originally watching it for this break over pretty much the 550 area. Call it 560, 550. Thought this put in a nice base after running a little bit. Again, was in the kind of originally was a Bitcoin miner, but now is kind of turning into a data center or a little bit of two. That's definitely one of the hottest themes at the moment for a lot of these previous Bitcoin miners. And so on this day, when it broke out over 550, I did get long, I think like 550 something, 560 something, only for it to stuff, right? It went as high as 570s, and then that was about it. And so depends how picky you want to be, but for me, like I will buy things, and even if it looks like, a fake out breakout, but doesn't stop me out, I typically will stick with it because I've just seen too many charts like not break out, but then the next day they do, or 2 days later they do. It's not always perfect, right? As long as they don't stop me out at the lows, I typically like to give them more time and patience. This one, however, I think, once I bought, there was a few minutes of being green, and then I was red practically the next 2 or 3 days. And for whatever reason, I just felt very uncomfortable where I just had this feeling that I was going to get stopped out. Where, I could have sold at any one of these days just because I felt uncomfortable, just because it clearly wasn't working after a full, 48 hours after I bought. But I just kind of stayed like a dumb goldfish or squirrel. Like I just said, nope, I have a risk level at the lows of like $5. Like let's just stick with it, however long it takes. Like let's just see how long it takes. And call it luck. This is when then overnight Google took a stake in Wolf here, and so that led to a massive gap up and run. The only slightly annoying part is that, and this has been typically the theme with this particular stock ever since that news, and what I ultimately learned about it was like it doesn't even really have that good of linear moves. Like it has glimpses, right? But in the process of doing that, it actually is quite choppy. Like there's linear moves that go up very smoothly, and then there's ones that do go up, but they're going to chop up and down pretty frequently on the way up. Like it's either like linear, like in a straight line, or it's going to be a zigzag and it looks like a straight line, but it's not. And so that's kind of what it turned into, because after, weeks of the 10 SMA catching up, all that happened was then it just broke below it and I sold it for like a 50K win, which was great. And then I rebought it on like the September 9th here when it kind of rebroke out kind of over this wedge, right? Right there. So I rebought it on this day. Again, only for it to, yes, go up, but do it over such a slow period and so choppy. And even now it's literally at the same price it was almost a month ago, like at least 2 to 3 weeks ago. And so I stopped out again on this sub 10 close. And theoretically, you can argue, well, Kyle, if you use the 20, you'd still be in it. But part of me doesn't even want to be in it. Like I'm glad I'm out of it, because it's like it's kind of a waste of buying power to buy something in the high nines and literally approaching a month later it's not even up 15, 20%. Like that's good. I'm happy to make money on it, but not when there's other movers out here going up 50, 100, 200% in a month. Like it's not worth it's a big opportunity cost, right? So even though this could still keep going off the 20, I just don't like it anymore. It's like really the news was 80% of that work, and after that it's like it's done not a whole lot. So again, so locked in 50K on this day, and then locked in another like 14K on this one here to show some of the trades. Yeah, this was the buy. Again, I missed the front side, but when it pulled back to that kind of 550 area, I said, you know what, screw it, let me buy 560. Again, was originally up for a little bit, and then we went back, and then this was the trim. So once the Google news came out, I then did finally trim some at 740, and then it kept going. So that was kind of not a regret, but it's like kind of sucks when you trim and an hour later it's literally $1 a share higher. And then this was me stopping out on the close of the 10. I forget why, maybe scaled out or not, but I just sold twice. It doesn't really matter. It was the two positions, pretty much same price, around $9 there. So locked that in 49K. And then the other Wolf trade, and it's mixed up in here somewhere. Actually, I think this is it right here. Is that popping out? Yeah, this is one of them. This is me selling. Yeah, sub 11. Probably the buy is mixed in somewhere. But yeah, so this is the 14K winner there later in the month. But yeah, that's that. So that was in the rest of week one. Another winner from week one was also RR. RR sounds like a little dog or a seal. Two wins on this one as well during this month. So the first one was the breakout over 230s, so kind of like a perfect double top in July and in August, and then late August it broke out, so I bought some at 233. Originally worked. I think I trimmed some either in the high twos or low three. I think it was low threes. I think it was like 330, 340. Unfortunately, only for it to come back and then pretty much round trip the entire gain. I did sell below the 10. And again, this is a better example of where using the 20 would have been much, much better. Because if I used the 20, I would still be in. In fact, if I used the 20, I would still be in on both of my trades. So why I didn't learn from the first trade to stick with the 20 in the second trade, I couldn't tell you. I just didn't. But that second trade was here. So after I stopped out on the 10, I noticed it did hold the 20, kind of came back up, put in a lower high, but then immediately broke out over that lower high and kind of surfed the 10 for these 3 days. I did rebuy, like 310 or so, 315 maybe, somewhere in there. And then they just went off to the races, right? Kind of perfectly broke out and then actually tested this trend line twice from the highs, which was great, and then went all the way up to 550. This one I was a little bit better about. I did not trim in the typical 3 to 5 days that you would normally should. This was one where I just maybe had a better read on it, where I was pretty convicted of like, hey, I think this will go much further and should wait to trim. So I didn't trim until I think 5 or... It wasn't 550. I mean, it was 450. I think it waited till 450 to trim. So instead of trimming at like 350 or 4, got a little bit more out of it at 450. Went all the way to 550, but then came all the way back down sub 10. So I sold around $4. Again, shoulda, coulda, woulda just acknowledged why the whole reason why I rebought, because it held the 20 in the first place on the first trade. Because what do you know, holds the 20 again. And then, and now we're actually right back at the 5. So kind of silly that I didn't stick with it, because we are literally right back near highs. Probably something I'll keep on watch, because if it can set up again, it probably has a decent buying opportunity, and I would imagine goes over these highs, maybe 6, 7, 8. But again, just not my favorite runner in general, because it can give so much back so quickly. It kind of brings out the desire to want to kind of try to time the top, because obviously selling it all here and just rebuying lower, and then selling it all here and rebuying lower, sounds nice, but it's not maybe realistic. But anyways, so yeah, that's that. So what did I make? I made like 12K on this first one, because it round tripped just too much of it. And then I made like 30K or so on this one, because again, I waited to the trim. So I got more out of the trim. And then actually, because this run took longer, the 10 actually got to catch up a little quicker. So, I still made like half of my gains left. So only gave back half here versus giving back like 60 or 70% of the gain there on the first one. So that was cool. And that was, again, pretty much the essence of week one. Well, the first one was RR. The second one, I think, was locked in on, I think it was this week. Well, we can tell. Which day was that when I sold under the 10 here? The 25th. So towards the end of the month. And again, those trades, we go into them. Do I even have it? I might not. I know I have this picture of the second one. I don't think I have pictures of the first one. But essentially, you know where I bought, right? 233, and then sold at like 260 something. Where that was weird. When it pop out. Yeah, down here. Anyways, so then week 2, you kind of saw the trade there. Tesla. So this was me literally buying the high. Very nice. Immediately failed the moment I bought. And this should have been I either should have waited for a 1-minute opening range break or a 5-minute opening range break. Would have saved me this loss. But it quickly stuffed. And then I think the very next day, if I'm not mistaken, got stopped out at the lows. So you got to love that. Lost 10K there. And again, that was, does you actually see a daily chart of it? That was this one. And again, for those who don't know, TSLL is just a 2x leverage ETF of Tesla. It was this day, right? It was the 5th going into the 6th or the 8th, I believe. And honestly, it held. This is what's so great about it, because if you actually looking at Tesla's a better way to view it, because TSL has like a little bit of decay behind it. If we can load here. I loved this wedge that it was forming. Again, constant higher highs, constant higher lows. I was willing to pretty much buy every new higher high this had, because I knew at some point the next higher high wasn't going to be just a higher high, and it was going to be a successful breakout. And so when it broke, and I think we went over it in August. I remember buying like one of these higher highs and then stopping out. I think I even did it here and then stopped out again. Did it again here because it just barely made a new higher high and then got stopped out again. But the cool part was that instead of kind of pulling back and making a perfect higher low on this trend line, it held significantly better, actually held above the 10 SMA, and then the actual breakout came and went, which I actually did buy, but maybe we'll talk. We don't have to talk about it more next week or next month. I did rebuy that, and it went as high to almost all-time highs. If we go to the actual chart, just barely. You can almost call this kind of double top, but it is a little bit of ways away. But I actually sold it today, so this will be actually today's P&L. If we go scroll over here. All right, that's why this day is so big for Thursday, October 2nd, because I sold all of my TSLL, because both Tesla and TSLL closed below the 10 today, right into the close. Unfortunately, they had news, but that news, although was positive, the market didn't like that and crapped itself pretty hard. So it was a good run. It was fun. Much better, percent gain on TSL than Tesla. So I'm happy I did that and how that worked out. But nonetheless, I'm rambling on. I did lose 10K to start the trade, but then we'll have made like 60 or 70K on this rebuy, which will obviously be in October. But next one, this was kind of I don't want to say it's a day trade, but it was a non-swing trade attempt at a swing trade idea. So first we'll do ETH because I used ETHU as the trade, but ETH, for those who've been following me on Twitter or who are in Clover, and let's get a price. I don't want to use the market cap. We'll do Coinbase. For those who've been following me on Twitter, I've been pretty adamant or vocal about ETH going under 4K. And again, if you've also followed me on Twitter, on my profile, one of the things I've always used is like, from me being a short bias trader in small cap, I've always said, I'm so bearish, I'm bullish. In the sense, like, I love short selling some of these crappy penny stocks that, like, I want them to go as high as possible so they can crash. So it's like, I'm so bearish on wanting to short them. I hope they go as high as possible being bullish. With ETH, I am the opposite. I am so bullish, I'm bearish. It's like I have such confidence or such I think it's such a high odds here that we do see new highs on ETH over 5K later this year, that I wanted to buy more sub 4K. And so leading up into all of this consolidation, I kind of just mentioned on Twitter on where, every time there was a bullish, factor with rate cuts getting cut by the Federal Reserve, ETH would pop, but then would drop. So this was Jackson Hole, pretty much made new all-time highs just by a couple dollars a share, a couple dollars a coin, and then sold off. Then jobs report came out, sold off, and then like PPI and CPI, but this one had a little bit more of a strength, and then it sold off. And then rate cuts came, and then it sold off again, and then finally we broke down sub 4K. So that was awesome. Tangent, but we've become extremely strong right back. So very bullish sign. I bought a little bit down here, but not, when I say I bought something, I bought practically 5% of what I wanted. It's quite actually frustrating. We'll talk about it when we look at ETHU's chart, but I wanted a little bit lower. I wanted 3,800 or 3,700, and of course the low is 38.25. Just got so close, but not close enough. And now, unfortunately, I don't think it actually goes down lower, but I digress. But either way, during this sideways period before PPI and CPI, or kind of going into it, I should say, I didn't, for some reason, after already selling off for Jackson Hole and the jobs report, for some reason, I didn't think we needed this PPI and CPI to go through to have this crack. And because it was kind of so sideways, I thought the roll was coming. I thought we were going to crack down sooner rather than later. So on ETHU, I did take a short. If we look into it here, I did start trying to get short like the 140s, thinking we were going to roll over. Unfortunately, the next day we gapped up, kind of back into the spikes range, only to then make me realize that hey, we're not selling off as quickly as we did last time, per se, with the other news, like with the jobs report and stuff. And so I'd rather not hold ETHU overnight because Ethereum could spike, and I can't exit ETHU because it's not 24/7, right? So I ended up playing it safe and just covering, but I did lose a little bit more than I wanted, 19K or so, only for it to actually work. So it's the thesis was right, timing was off, and the most frustrating part about ETHU is that, again, it's not open when ETH is open. So of course the breakdown happens over the weekend, over that, Saturday and Sunday. So, and again, I don't want to, I had a suspicion it could get weak over the weekend, especially after rate cuts happened and we were already selling off and round tripping that move. But again, do I really want to get short on a Friday and risk just leaving it up to price action on a Saturday and Sunday of not being up on my money or not having a big enough cushion for it to, God forbid, ETH spiked huge, and now I'm going to catch a 20% gap up on ETHU. So it's no, I don't need to take that level of risk overnight. Unfortunately, that was the move. That was the move to take because it gapped down and then it sold off even more and again putting those lows down here at 110. And again, speaking of which, when I talked about 5 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago about buying some, it's so funny. I had a buy order on ETHU at 109, and the low is 109.21. Yeah, so that doesn't hurt or at all. I'm not angry about that one bit. But yeah, that wasn't fun. Anyway, so yeah, lost some money on ETHU. Again, I got the trades here. Okay, that's Tesla. Get that out of the way. Yeah, ETHU. Trying to get short some at 142-ish. Take that overnight because it's only one night over. I feel a little bit safer that way. Cover next day on PPI. Unfortunately, again, spikes on PPI, pulls back. Try one more time. I'm like, okay, it just round tripped again. Let's give that a shot. Try it one more time overnight. And then same thing, tried to adding on once CPI came out and then dropped. cut it, reshorted it, and then covered it again. I was like, damn it, this is not round tripping like PPI did. CPI is holding up a little better. And again, that was the right move because it did end up going much, much higher, but then ended up round tripping again. So yeah, sucks, but right idea, wrong timing and or trade plan. So that was, I think, on this day here, on the 11th, when I finally realized that loss. Now, but what helped me on the 12th to close out the week green? So open here. Let's pull up open. Again, this will be a swing trade we're going to talk about very shortly after this trade, but in essence, this was getting kind of overblown. Just enough for me to feel like, one, I should probably hedge my long with a short, but two, irrelevant if I was long on a swing trade. This is kind of extended enough for a first red day pattern. Now, it is not the traditional look of a first red day pattern because this is only really one green day. But because it kind of ran up into it, and because this was up 75% in a single day on the new CEO getting hired, which is, again, is a bullish catalyst, it just had enough extension to it that I deemed like, hey, this might not go higher, and this could have a healthy pullback. And if it's going to be healthy because it was just up 75% and up over 100% in a matter of just a few days or less than 2 weeks, it's worth possibly getting short. And so that's what I did. I actually, I would call this an overextended gap down. It gapped down, gave you a pop to the, low 10s with 50 being the previous close, pulled as low as like just barely sub 9, and I locked in like 23K. If you look at that, if you look at the trade here, this is that intraday look, right? Previous close was 1050, got short a little bit pre-market. It pulled into market open, which was nice. It did spike. I kind of, in hindsight, wish I added on these spikes because that was kind of confirmation, especially after the second one that like, hey, we're failing before it even gets to red green, let alone even tests it or touches it. So even if I wasn't getting short here, I think getting short, back at 10 again on those failures could have been decent. And then it pulled back. Unfortunately, covered a little bit early. I was a little bit spooked out by this bounce. I thought we were going to kind of have this pull kind of just continuing here. We didn't, so we needed one more bounce. Then it went below sub 9. But again, I don't really care. I kind of took the meat of the move of what I thought was at the minimum end of a move it could make. And again, I'm long, while I'm shorting this, I am still long in a swing trade. So like I'm kind of making up for lost unrealized profits on the swing as it's happening. So it wasn't as something I maybe planned to be as aggressive on because it wasn't, again, not a true first form of a red day. It was just one big green day. And then two, I already kind of felt pretty good about it that I was making money on the short to make up for the unrealized losses on the long. So we'll take it. So that was kind of cool. And then, so going into next week, so now we're going into here. Not as much happened. Again, Thursday, Friday didn't take any trades, or I guess didn't close any trades. I think I took some swing trades or just managed some positions, right? But really all of it was on the 15th. So what happened on the 15th? So two actual, I don't want to say day trades because they were both technically overnight trades, but they were, when I say day trades, like they're in the small cap space. I wasn't intending on swinging them like a cool Moggy style swing. The first one was Wolf, so not W-U-L-F, W-O-L-F. It's funny that there's two Wolves this month. But so they exited bankruptcy, so ignore this huge wick, these huge moves. They believe they did a reverse split or something. They changed some structure of shares, so it's not actually what it once was. But if we pull in, let me zoom into the daily so you can really see what we're looking at here. Come on. Okay, so we had this run back in July. That was a good one. But then on here is when the stock gapped up because that was the news that they were exiting bankruptcy, and they were doing it positively, right? If you exit bankruptcy and you do it how most companies are, it's again like shareholders get absolutely no value whatsoever, and you have to start pretty much fresh. And yes, that was true for Wolf, but stockholders, retail, or I guess non-preferred shareholders kept they lost like 95%. So instead of losing 100%, you only lost 95%. It's kind of bullish because you get to save 5% versus losing all of your money. But either way, people didn't expect maybe them to exit bankruptcy. Like a lot of people were expecting, including myself, were waiting for this to get delisted. I remember shorting it here thinking it could get delisted, but man, good thing I didn't hold thinking it was going to, because you would have been short for a very long time and never ever getting it. So it gaps up on that news. Now I'm noticing that it's failing it just failed right at $2, and so did this previous kind of bounce attempt, like the low twos, 205, $2, right around there. So immediately I'm telling myself, positive news, exiting bankruptcy, and now gives me a price level of $2 to possibly join that trend. And so that's exactly what I did. So it pulled back, didn't really care much, but then we come back, and then out the open on this day, on the 12th, I buy the $2 breakout. And it worked, I think, if I remember correctly, I think it worked fairly well, really quickly. Yeah, here we go. And the breakout actually happened in kind of pre-market. So, I'm not necessarily one to buy a breakout level in pre-market, but because it was going so sideways right below 2, it didn't really matter to me, the market hours, because it kind of confirmed like, hey, the stock cares about this level. And so this is me buying it. Out the open does dip to like the 190s. But not even close to red green, which was strong. So then it ramped right up to 230s, came back down. I think this shook out a lot of people. I didn't care. My risk was going to be well down at red green, so I was like, you know what? Let's just stick with it. I really love that this formed this base here, because it kind of forms these lower highs. And then hits another wedge or another L level to possibly add. And so that's exactly what I did. Over 220, I added some more. And once I added here, I moved my stop to pretty much the low of day here. Originally worked, made some new highs into the close. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, kind of sold off into after hours. But again, 4 years ago, Kyle would have hated this action. Like I used to be very picky on the long side of like, hey, it can't be indicating a gap down the next day. Like it has to be strong into after hours or I'm not going to swing it kind of idea. But from swing trading, from Kuomagi style swing trading, I've kind of gathered and learned to have patience even on the the short-term day trade or one overnight kind of idea kind of trades. So even though it was kind of fading in after hours, I said, you know what, who cares? Like it's still above the $2 breakout. Like trust the setup, right? Trust that it's going to work. And so that's exactly what happened. The very next day, that gap down in after hours was no longer a thing. We opened pretty much right at break even, or right at red green previous close out the open. We ramp into 250s, I sell some more. We ramped into 260s, I sell some more. We get a pullback, we pretty much hold VWAP, and then we get one more final ramp to 3+, so I sell it in pieces of 280, 290, 310, maybe 315 at the high or something like that. And then sell the rest on this bounce to 3, and still hold pretty sideways. Like this looked really good to go overnight again, but I already locked in the profits, and like I said, that extra add over 220 the previous day really helped juice the gains. So I ended up locking 60K on these sells. One of the bigger kind of call it small cap breakouts I've ever been a part of, just because it's just you couldn't ask for a better breakout. Like buy 2, close your eyes, trust the plan, and like go sell it at 3. It couldn't have been any more straightforward, and I'm stoked about it. It was great. Now some people might be asking or wondering, well, like, okay, Kyle, like, well, why? What dictates you from taking a call it a day trade swing trade versus a mid cap or large cap Kuomagi style swing trade, or why didn't I do it at least on Wolf here? Because the next day it did go up to 350, but then it crashed, and then it actually really crashed. I didn't necessarily know it was going to really crash, but what I will say is that this company was still bankrupt, guys. Like, yes, the news was that they were coming out of bankruptcy, but it's not just that easy of like, oh, out of bankruptcy, immediate gap up or immediate everything's fine and dandy. Like, again, I still knew, even with positive exiting bankruptcy news, that like most shareholders will not keep their value. Not only that, but again, filings can come out after hours, news can come out unexpectedly. Like, just there's too many uncertain factors about it that like I was like, nope. The fact that we're gonna get a move, literally the easiest I can ask for, from $2 to $3, and get a 50% move in 2 days. Like, there's zero reason for me to try to overstay my welcome here and try to trail an SMA or just see how long it can go. Like, I had that pit in my stomach of like, that is no way worth it for me, especially the fact that I'm up 60K in 2 days. Like, absolutely take it. So that is why I sold it. And lo and behold, that ended up being like almost spot on, right? We even if you actually look at where the moving averages were, we can even see them after this chart's going to make it all whack looking. Yeah. Gosh, it's going to be hard to do, but let's just say hypothetically, if I did do that, right? If I did actually try to swing an SMA or trail an SMA, I would have stopped out break even. If my average was like 210 or whatever, 215, but after I added over 220, like this thing pulled straight back into the level. So all I would have made would have been trimming. I would have trimmed, let's say, at $3, and I would have given it all back. Like we would not have made 60K. We would have made 10K, 20K, So I'm very happy with that decision. And, it's up more, but again, the bankruptcy, all that, whether you even would have had that number of shares on this gap up after the split or the value lost by shareholders. Again, I don't know the details of it, but I don't really care. So it was good. Good 60K winner there. Next day trade that I closed out on that day or small cap trade, I should say, was Air, AIRE. Again, if you know how I like to short sell things, beautiful multi-day run. We're going from pretty much 40s to 50 cents all the way up to $1.80 at the highs. This one in particular, though, I would call this an overextended gap and crap, where it has a pretty decent gap up, tries to push and significantly fails, to where I have enough suspicion that the backside would kind of begin intraday on the top day, and then the next day would be a kind of first red day. So if we're going into the intraday chart to see kind of all the days in unison, if we load here, just maybe not. Interesting. First time this has happened. Anyways, if not, we have the day trades, or I can have the screenshot, but to pull it up on AERE. There we go. That's exactly what happened, right? We had a red day the very next day, and actually it didn't gap down, it gapped even, tried to spike into the previous resistance, and then did have a red day. So in terms of the actual trades, I actually got pretty aggressive on this one, and I can't necessarily tell you why per se, because it's not like me to maybe sell or short into a spike like that. Like normally I'd rather let it fail. The only thing I can remember as to why I was willing to give this a stab is that, again, we're up from 50 cents, we're on day 3, and we just spiked from 130 to 180. Like, in terms of getting a blow off move or an exhaustion move to a runner that's already extended, like, this is kind of it. And so, especially going into like around $2 number. So I remember thinking to myself, like, this may be, a lower win rate idea, but if this ends up being right, it's going to be a sick risk reward idea. So it was one of those things where I was willing to take a paper cut or two in the idea that, hey, this might be the blow off. And if it is, and it does work, then my risk reward is going to be awesome. And so that's exactly what happened. It's one of those things where, like, when you step in the scariest moment of a trade, it ends up actually being the right time to do so. Because shorting here didn't feel easy. Like, it wasn't like, oh, it's obvious, I'm going to short here and make some money. Like, it was like I was fully prepared to have to immediately stop out if it ran to like 190, right? But it didn't. It actually put in a lower high, just barely at like the 170s area right here. So then I added some more on the way down. Don't remember why I covered. I think I partially covered getting scared that it was bouncing back. But again, it was so far off the highs. I think I remember immediately re-adding that size back. And then more failure. So this was like more further confirmation. Really love that all of these bounces kept projecting VWAP for the most part. And then we closed pretty much at the stock's lows. Again, not perfectly, but definitely the lower end of the range. So that was all green lights to go to, hey, swing this overnight and take it overnight. And so then if we get rid of it, this was the next day. So next day, did actually spike up. So again, this is one of the, what's it called? Like the cautions with swinging short overnight, or really swinging anything overnight in general, long or short. But again, being up earlier, to, watch it, I think is a necessary thing. So I was ready to stop out here. Like this was, I had my finger on the trigger of like, we might have to, cut my losses. Thankfully it held. So the 180 high from the previous day held perfectly. And then I only did a round trip, but then it just got clobbered. I don't remember seeing or having news coming out here. But that was even more confirmation of like, okay, we're right. Unfortunately, I wasn't at my desk. Like once we pulled back in, I stepped away for a second. So I completely missed this pull. Like I wish I was there because I would have loved to have covered some like into one I would have been done with the trade practically. But it did bounce back to red green, opens at red green, but then the red day still proceeds to happen. And I cover the rest in the like 1-teens, 115, 117, 118, 120. Unfortunately, never did sell off back to 1 like it did pre-market, but again, it's not a big deal. I'm just happy I didn't stop out up here, right? But anyways, I locked in 25K on this trade. So that was really good. That was a good one. Again, that was both locked in on Monday here. So that was that for that week. And then going into week 4 here, this was a big one. So this was locking in a lot of swing trades. The first one would have been open. So back to open. If we go back into it. So let's talk about this one, because this one, one was legendary. It's my biggest swing trade since swing trading. But 2, I almost didn't have this as a gain. Like I almost stopped out, which is crazy because it's not even how I should have approached the swing trade in general, but it's just crazy how lucky I got. And we'll talk about it. So step number 1, or part number 1 of the story, is that shout out to Huddy. Huddy brought it to my attention, this wedge. By all means, he said, "Hey, you're gonna want to look at open like this. This looks good, right? Like this." And for me, still just getting done shorting open on this backside move as a first red day, and then I actually tried to short it on a breakdown move throughout these days. I wasn't convinced that that open was going to turn into what it turned into. Like in my brain, this thing was still going to fade back down to practically nothing. Just because so few runners in the small cap space ever do that. Like if you have a blow off move in the small cap space, like of this magnitude that open did, like 99.9% don't come back. So even though I saw it, I didn't believe it yet. So once it went, and then it actually touched 4, and it went all the way up to 4 and failed, kind of where the major first red day topped at 4, and then again the bounce short, or the bounce kind of that happened late day. If you watch July's recap, we talk about that. So 4 was a pretty big level, and so when we failed, I thought to myself, like, okay, 5 is all-time highs. There's now a significant level at 4. If I want to join the party here, like that's the spot to join it. And I loved it even more because then we pulled back to the 10. Don't hold the 10 perfectly, but hold it well enough that when we come back, we break out a 4. Now, this is the first part of luck, which is I was on a bachelor trip. Okay, we left Thursday, we partied Thursday night, and so going into Friday morning, I was like, dude, I'm hungover. I'm up till like 1 a.m. The market opens in like 5 hours for me on the east, or on the west coast. I was like, I am just going to miss. Like I haven't taken a day off in a very long time. Like let me just sleep in. And so I sleep in. I sleep in till maybe an hour or 2 into the market open. I actually wake up naturally without an alarm, just because of, I think I do the bathroom. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I wake up, and so a very natural habit of mine when I wake up is I check quotes. I'm just on my phone. Like I'll lay in my bed and on my phone, like let's just see where things are at. And I literally see open, pushing 450, 460. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, I missed it here because I didn't believe in it. And then I'm missing it here on this buy. So I immediately rush out of bed and I go to my laptop and I say, like, I tell the bachelor, I'm like, hey, I told you I wasn't going to work. I apologize. I have to work. Please forgive me. I'll buy you a drink later, kind of thing. And so these are the buys. So once it was pushing 450, 460, thankfully, just a gift, it did pull back into the 420s. Now, I would have loved to have actually bought it at 4, so did have to buy smaller size than what I originally would have wanted. But I also wanted to be more aggressive. I knew this was going to be a better play, so coulda, shoulda, woulda, just had lesser risk at 4. Or I just bought a more aggressive size, but willing to take a bigger loss if it did die, back down here sub 4. So happy at least pulled. So I got something better. It would have sucked if I had to buy like 450, but I at least got like a 420s average. And it ran, right? It went all the way up to 5, just double topped at 5, which is now the all-time highs. So I felt good about this. Like I was stoked, as much as I missed the entry, it's great. I'm here, I'm in it, and now we're going with it. Now, the issue here is, if we go back to the daily chart, it then goes even higher, right? Next day, it opens up, it touches like 580, and then we round trip all the way back and actually close red back down at 450. So I round trip a lot of gains here. And do I trim? No, I don't trim. I couldn't tell you why. Call it greed, call it just call it confidence in that I thought the idea was going to work because I'd been so wrong. And then again, most stocks don't come back like this. So if they were going to come back, like it should be an insane move. I just don't trim. And not only do I don't trim, I say, well, because I'm not trimming, let's move my risk up. So instead of risking the lows of this day, let's risk $4. Like let's, if this is going to work, it should respect what once was resistance become support at 4. But what I also said is like, hey, this is a stock that can chop around a bit. Just because I say it should hold 4 doesn't mean it's going to perfectly hold 4. It could go over by a few cents. So what do? I set my stop loss at 395. Can you guess, and I'm sure you can if you have charts in front of you, where the low of day was on this day when it tested 4? The low of day is 396. Like I'm not joking. Like I have no reason to make the story sound cooler than it is. I promise you, like I put my stop loss in like on the way up on these backside days, or kind of on the way up either on this day or the day after when it was also failing again, this spike, because I was like, okay, I haven't trimmed yet, but I don't want to trim yet. Like let's move my stop loss up, but let's give it a 5-cent buffer. Just again, pure luck that I was one freaking penny away from not stopping out. But the idea was right. Like if I had put my stop loss at like $3.99 or $4, like it would have stopped me out, because that's what most people do, is like they want to just pick the exact price. But again, on a ticker like Open, where there's so much volume, there's so many participants, it's very easy for a stock like this to possibly go over the level a little bit and then come right down. I mean, this is a perfect example. It went and touched 4 on this day of the 19th of August, only to go as high as 410 and then still fail, right? So that was kind of a sign, and probably why it influenced me to give it some wiggle room, because it could still go just above the resistance level of 4, but failed. So just because 4 now becomes support doesn't mean 4 is just going to be like this great wall of China that never breaks. Like it could absolutely have washed out and came back, and that's exactly what happened. So again, got insanely lucky with that. Consolidated for 2 days, ramped up, held sideways above 5, kind of proving itself that it's going to hold 5. Then we really get going. Then I finally trimmed some at like 7. So again, kind of similar to RR, trimming it later helped me a ton. Pulled back, tapped the 10, and then overnight is when they announced their new CEO. So then that ramped massively. I then trimmed some more up at like 10 plus. Watched this thing chop for about a week as the 10 SMA was catching up, which was fantastic. And then finally it rolls over. By the end of the day, it was clearly going to close below the 10 SMA. So I sold at like 870, 860, I think, 860, 850. And then it closed down at 8. And then actually in after hours that day, it panicked all the way down to 7, which was pretty insane. So I avoided a massive loss of giving gains back by actually sticking to the 10. Lo and behold, though, it did hold the 20, but now it is actually losing the 20. So even if I was sticking to the 20, I definitely would have sold in the last 3 days of this week. But either way, all in all, between the trim at 7, the trim at 10s, and then the final sell in the 8s, mid 8s, I locked in just over 200 grand. That is this biggest trade on the month, almost $1,000 over 200 grand. So again, biggest swing trade. Just really freaking awesome. Again, just pure. Again, I can't say entirely luck, because again, I explained my thesis why I picked 395 and it worked. But just insane that it went exactly a penny, because it could have done 392. It could have done 390 and it still went on to go. So the fact that it just happened to have been only 4 cents and not 5 cents, like just crazy. But anyways, what other swing trades happen here? So you've noticed I held off from trimming on RR. I held off on trimming on Open. I started to get a little bit confident with that idea. I was like, you know what? I don't need to trim all the time. Like let's hold all my gains for longer without trimming and try to get more out of the trim. So another one, OUSD. And actually, before we go over OUSD, let me show you the rest of the trades here. So yeah, this is me selling some at 7. Get rid of Open there. This is me selling some 10 plus. And then this is me selling the rest at 1060 or 860 before it really panicked. And then unfortunately I took the screenshot before it panicked, but had I retook it, which I should have, I mean, this was down here at 7. It really just, got annihilated in after hours. It was pretty impressive. Wish I shorted, made me wish I shorted, because I thought about it, but I did not flip from long to short. Anyway, so OUSD did buy some over. I really liked it over, was it this day? Yeah, it was the 18th. Over this left side peak, like clearly this like 32 level that originally got set here, stuffed here, was basing now underneath it. I thought to myself, if it can back over like 32, we can possibly look to head the highs of 36, which it did. It double topped perfectly. Again, did I trim? No. This is me buying it, obviously, right into 32. I realized I was slightly oversized, so I sold like 1,000 or 2,000 shares right immediately into the pop, but still risk low of day. Again, immediately works into 34s, touches 36, like we said on the daily chart, which this one frustrates me the most because it's so obvious. Like, it's one thing if, again, if on like RR or open, I said, hey, I want to just hold for longer. The trend is still intact. Like, let's do so. But here on OUST, it's telling you where the resistance is. Like, it's giving you a price to be like, hey, if there's a place to trim, it probably should be right into a double top, just in case if it doesn't break out. So I'm kind of annoyed I didn't trim any. And so, yeah, it chilled up at 36 for a couple days. So I was like, okay, well, like, let's not trim at all still, and then actually look to buy more over 36 for a secondary breakout and then really get going. Not thinking that a double top was an option, which of course it is. So yeah, came back, stopped myself out, lost 12K. So turned a like 36 plus K winner into a 12K loser. So round tripped way too much. And again, had I trimmed, I would have kept my stop loss. I would have moved my stop loss off to break even. So I actually probably would have stopped out any one of these 3 days. It went right back to 32. So coulda, shoulda, would have. It never would have turned into a winner, obviously, but it definitely would have been a loser had I trimmed. So definitely annoying. And even now, it's not even close to back to where it once was. So that's number one. Another one is SLDP. Did the same thing here. This one, and I knew better with this one because this one has so much more resistance to get through, right? This one needs so much more work to get to 550. But here I am buying it on this day, the 19th. I don't know. I like the trend lines here. I don't really like how crisscross they are or how mixed they are. It's very subjective on some of these things, but again, I love the kind of triple top off the highs here. I love the left side peaks matching here, kind of going into now this daily candle. So bought over this first trend break and then got confirmation on that it went higher. But again, where is it going into? Also right into the actual left side peaks. Like, it went right into them and then stopped in the mid fours. So you would think, hey, Kyle, you're even lucky you even got this move in the first place, being that there's so much overhead resistance right in front of your face. Like, don't you think you should trim some? Nope, don't trim any. So 2 days later, round trips the whole move. I stop out for a 13K loss. Annoying, right? And even then, it's still back down to the lows. So it's just something I should have known better. I should have known that. I did know. I just ignored it. I was just greedy. So sucks. It wouldn't have been a big gain anyway if I trimmed, but it just wouldn't have been a loser. So lesson learned there. And then another one was Hive. Hive, I did not get greedy. I just got caught on a market gap down, which sucks. Although Hive is working now, and I actually am still long this thing, so that's cool. I rebought, I should say. Bought on this trend break on the 24th of September, and it looked good. It was holding well. And the next day, the whole market gap down, and so did Hive, and so I puked it for a lost like 10K there. But then did rebuy it on the 30th, and I'm still long. So this will hopefully be a nice profit in October if it keeps going. We'll see. It's not gone that much far away from entry, but it's a good start. So I got that one. So what else? Oh, then RR. So then this is when RR came along. We already talked about the trade, but just to show you the daily chart once more, this is around then when I locked in that 33K gain on the 25th, closing below the 10. And then again, this was also when I locked in Wolf, the second trade of Wolf. And we've already talked about those, but again, locked that in on the 15th or 25th as well, closing on the 10. And then the other big gain, which put us at this day, was Oklo. And again, I keep forgetting. Let's get rid of. Oh yes, OUST, that's the buy. Here's the sell. Here's the SLDP buy. Into late day, kind of breaking highs. I remember telling myself, like, I'll buy over this high, but I hope it doesn't happen yet, just because I knew there needed to be ideally more sideways price action to make it look better, given all the overhead resistance. But then lo and behold, it comes back. So I just said, screw it, let me buy some, only to then no trimming and then stopping out for a loss at the lows, which is always fun. But okay, then here's Hive. Bought out the open, bought the top. Thankfully held the lows. By the late day, it was working. Next day, ugly market gap down, get stopped out. here's RR. So here's RR, buying over that 310, over that higher high, which again, coulda, shoulda, would have said RR needs more time, but I kind of knew that it held the 20. Like, hey, I might and should be still in, so that's why I rebought it. 450 trim, we talked about that. And then again, sub 4 into close, sold the rest for 33 grand. Then also Wolf. Oh yeah, God, okay, I'm all over the place. Sorry guys, this is the Wolf buy in the high 9s. That's where it went. And then do I not have the sell? I don't know. I've been getting all scatterbrained with the screenshotting. But okay, here's OKLO. So OKLO was a beauty. Oh my God, I love this ticker. So this is one of those ones where, when I look back on my swing trading profits, I've made 3 successful, really good trades on this one. And again, we've already talked about it in previous reviews. But so I was already watching this thing as it was consolidating through these levels, because I was like, hey, I've already nailed 2 really good trades on this thing. Like, this is a great trader, a great trender. Like, I need to be here for this. And so what I really loved was, one, it was forming this trend line. But before the trend line, it was getting over this left side peak. Let me actually put in a horizontal line because I want to show you guys. Right here, this left side peak at like 73 and change. So when we were just barely breaking over that level, not only was it breaking over the left side peak, but it also was reclaiming the 20 and the 10-day SMA. Not a big deal because, again, it did it once here and then failed. But for me, I think around the same time, this is when the AI data center plays were going hot. This is when Iron was spiking big. This is when CIFR was spiking big. This was when Wolf was spiking big, when I bought Wolf in the 980s. And then we're doing it because of AI. Like, what data centers are hot because of AI. The AI needs power. And they go to data centers for that computing power. But then they also need energy. And again, OKLO has been running because it's going to be a predominantly, or people are betting on the fact that OKLO is going to be a big source of energy for AI. So when it started getting a bid and started going up a little bit here, I thought, you know what, this might be a little bit early, but the trend is pretty obvious to me here of what's going to be strong in this market environment. Like, let's buy some. So did buy some in the 730s. Next day, gapped up, but sold off a little bit. And the next day actually broke that trend. This is one of my biggest regrets about this trade is that I did not add over that trend break, because it was perfect. The fact that it actually held on the day after I bought and then went through it the next day was amazing. And then, the rest is history. The only thing I regret beyond that is just trimming too much too soon. I remember trimming some at like 95. I then trimmed some at like 110. I trimmed again at like 130. Unfortunately, it then did gap down a ton from just being up too much. And then I sold on this day at like 109, 110, closing below the 10 SMA. And even now, it is back up. And it held 108, 109 pretty impressively. This run might not be over. Pretty impressive. Just really cool mover. I did not expect this to just blow off like it did, but it led to a 67K gain. So here's OKLO. Again, this is kind of what we're talking about, where once AI data centers were getting hot, there was a clear trend of buyers coming in on OKLO. And so I bought some there. Trimmed some, like I said, at 90. Then trimmed some more at 130. Do I have the picture of the trim at 1? Oh yeah, here's the trim at 110 or 109. So a lot of trims. Again, a lot of them were small, but obviously in hindsight, like, just not trimming any and holding till the 10 SMA would have probably helped me a little bit. The 130 trim was worth it, but all the other trims before that were pretty much not break even, but no better than the sell of the 10 SMA here at 109. So either way, still a great gain. Partially wishes I am long. I'm not, but I wish I kind of was. I wish I maybe was taking this hold of 108, 109 more seriously, and maybe buying yesterday or today, because it's now up, another 10%. So that is cool. But yeah, so that was that week. Then to close out the month, here we have 2 day trades, or again, small cap trades. First one being, where is it? NUAI. This is one that I think I took 2 losses on. I think I took a loss on it on this day, on the 26th, and a loss on the 29th, thinking that it should have crapped itself, because again, on the 26th, it did actually crap itself. But on the 29th, gapping up into that resistance, I thought to myself, hey, it's probably a good time to have a red day going into that resistance. Did the opposite, actually came back and broke highs, only to then fail, which you gotta love when that happens, but it's part of the game. But again, beautiful green days, going from like 50 cents, sub 50 cents, all the way up to the 1s or 2. We're just not going to load today, are we? Did ARA even load? Okay, ARA eventually loaded. Jesus. for who knows how long after that. Oh, wait. Maybe? Here we go. Nice. So yeah, I remember getting short some on this day, thinking that this was going to kind of roll over, but it did not, so it goes higher. And then after all this kind of now backside or resistance, I then thought, okay, we are now gapping up into that level just slightly. Like, let's see if we can kind of either spike or just fail at any one of these previous bounce highs. And originally it looked okay. Like, again, we spiked into 220s, which is where some of these tops are. Pulled back a little bit, right? Zoom in really so you can see it. Right, looked like it was going to roll over, but just didn't, and just kept going and going and going. I forget, I remember covering either here or here. It was before it broke highs, but clearly, like, if I was looking for this to roll over, this doesn't look like something that's going to roll over. This looks like a perfect trend line that is just going to keep on going until it's not going to go anymore. And obviously, that was then after it broke highs. So anyone who was short kind of stopped out at highs, like I would have. Only to then actually rug pull, and actually that was the top, and the next day it worked. So here is that trade, right? Getting short a little bit pre-market for the gap up, adding some more to the spike, and said, nope, this is just not it. This is not happening. The sucky part or the crappy part about this is that I did not reshort it on the actual red day. This was a great day of downside. Again, the previous close I think was I think this pop actually put the close at 250. And so the fact that it only spiked to like 225, 230 at best on this wick, I didn't really love risking 10% plus because I didn't know how low it was going to go. Had I known it was going to go to 175, okay, the risk reward would have made sense. You could have made 50 cents to risk 25 cents. But when we were down 10%, I'm like, am I really going to short it down 10% and maybe get 10% of downside, like 1-to-1? I'd rather not, and so I didn't, but it was a good one. So I missed that one. It sucks, but it is what it is. Thankfully, I only lost like 13K on this one day, so it's not like the end of the world. I didn't really miss out a ton. But anyways, DLFI is the last one of the month. Made 30K on this one, and actually it's actually spiking. This is not a misprint. This is actually running in after hours after a breakout over 80 cents, which is fantastic. But again, same idea, right? Goes from 30 cents to as high as 80. I got short twice here. If we go into the intraday, let's please load. Come on. And Dragonfly Energy. It's either, again, it's energy based, but I also think Dragonfly, it's like, is it aviation? I know some aviation stocks are running hot right now too, so it doesn't shock me that whether it's energy or drones or aviation or whatever, it's hot right now. So this thing's running. But yeah, so again, it goes from 30 cents all the way up to 80 cents. Similar to AIRE, right? Where at some point, if we're on day 3, day 4, day 5, like at some point, if there's a blow off, like it probably, the air does come out of it. Now, I did not short this spike like AERE. I wasn't even thinking about it. I thought to myself, this could go to $1. Like, so maybe if it gets to $1, we'll think about it. But until then, don't even bother. Until it then double topped massively and then cracked again. And again, at this point, we're at, in this mid 70s. The previous close is all the way down at like 50. I was like, there's some air to come out of this. And again, if it's similar to AIRE, if the top is getting put in the morning, this could roll over and then lead to a red day the next day. So kind of the same trend, right? So I did get short kind of into this bounce, got the roller I was looking for. The best decision I made here, though, was that I wasn't going to wait for red green. So red green, like I said, was 50 cents. All right, it was all the way down here. But you'll notice, where was the high from the previous day? It was like 58, 59-ish. So I thought to myself, hey, if we're going to sell off from 80 down to 50, that's asking for a lot. Like usually stocks don't, nothing goes straight up, nothing goes straight down, and some stocks will get crushed, but I wouldn't, hold out for it. And so I actually put my cover orders at 60, anticipating that, hey, like probably 58, 59 probably has some good support. And again, that was perfect. That read was exactly what happened. And so I thankfully covered all of it at 60 instead of like covering into pieces. Again, normally I'm covering into pieces if you see enough of my trades. This time I just didn't. Again, call it luck, call it the more you study, the more you know, the more you kind of make right decisions. But I covered it all at 60. So it gave me a cushion to then reshort some late day. After we kind of clearly topped out for an hour or two plus, I said, okay, I'm going to get short. I'm going to get short some here. I wanted to be fancy and risking half on 72 and then half on 80. And then it rolled over. So I definitely liked it. I was like, you know what? This probably shouldn't come back to 72 and I should be able to do that. However, I ended up going back and changing my plan and moving it all to 280 at the high, because the next day, and actually the trade doesn't show it, the screenshot doesn't show it, but actually the chart will, right? We start uptrending in. And then in pre-market, we start coming back over 72. And something you'll notice is, like, even though it got crushed and it pulled back, this bounce was still, it was a lot. This is a big bounce back. And it took a very long time for that bounce to finally fail and roll over. So when we were kind of doing that whole thing in after hours and pre-market, I thought to myself, you know what? This is that stock's characteristics, okay? And so it'd be one thing if this was weak and then it came into 72, like out of the open, but doing it in a liquid pre-market action, I was like, you know what? I know the true level that matters most is 80 cents. Like, risking half on 72 is just not the right play here from an edge perspective, from the highest expectancy of how I'm going to get this trade to work, or what is going to keep this trade and thesis most intact. Like, it's not going to be risking 72. It's going to be risking 80. So I do move half my size risk back to having it all risking 80. Thankfully, never even went to have to go over 75. Out the open cracks, I then do get my covers into this pull. Unfortunately, again, I made the same mistake twice. Did not cover it all. Watched it bounce massively, like here, and then I just covered into this pull. I had to wait, an hour or two, and then it finally got this pullback, although didn't get, at the lows, but close enough. Getting covers around 60 cents is decent. And so between both those trades, between this one and this reshort, to then cover, right, some into the panic, but then had to wait for these dips to get out the rest, locking in 30K, pretty much 15K perfectly, actually. I'm making like 15K here and then 15K here. So good way to end the month. And that's it. That's all the main winners and losers. Again, not a lot of losers, like I mentioned. Like, the win rate, even for swing trading, the win rate was really good, just on top of day trades as well. So very happy to see that, but again, not the norm. And again, we're already having a great start to October, like I've mentioned. So, excuse me. Anyways, guys, long one, over an hour for you guys. Just a very, very good week or month. Very excited for Q4. I think Q4 is going to be just as bullish or more. But yeah, if you made it this long into the video, thank you so much for watching. As always, like and subscribe. Feel free to check out Clover Trading as always. And yeah, see you guys next time. Peace.